I thought that was hilarious at the end of your CV, your interest. You put Dunkin' Donuts.
It's okay to have a little sense of humor, I think.
I thought it was incredible. See, my preference is 7-Eleven and McDonald's, but I go for the
Coffee.
Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, absolutely.
I always used to have a joke that I would do nearly anything for an extra large Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Like if you needed me to do you a favor, that just get me that and I could be pretty much talked into anything.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the host of the Dean's Chat podcast and the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine. In my quest to bring leaders in the profession to Dean's Chat, my guest today is no exception. Dr. Andrew Meyr is a professor at the Temple University School of Podiatric Medicine. He's the residency director for the Temple University Hospital Podiatric Surgical Residency Program. He's the director of the limb salvage team at Temple University Hospital. Interestingly enough, he's the curator for the Shoe Museum at Temple University in the history of footwear. That's unique, Andrew.
Best of Philadelphia, 2022, our museum was.
I just love it. That's great. You're also, talk about giving back to the profession. You're a board member of the American Association of Colleges of Podiatric Medicine, representing the COTH, and I'm with you on that board. Yeah. And you're also on the board of the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. So we'll talk about all this throughout the visit today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Heck, I'm not done introducing you yet, though. Okay. You're an author of 2 books, 10 chapters. I counted 108 original manuscripts and indexed publications. I just find it to be interesting. You've got some eclectic interests, art and literature, and coffee.
I do enjoy coffee, yes. I try and drink it only first thing in the morning, but I do enjoy it.
Well, welcome to Dean's Chat, Dr. Meyr. It's great. We go by the fireside chat kind of vibe, so let's just go by Andy and Jeff, if that's okay with you.
That's great.
All right. Well, with that introduction, I thought the best place to start, if you don't mind going back a few years, is let's talk about your podiatric journey. How'd you find out about podiatric medicine?
I've known about it for a long time. I wish I had a better story in like one specific episode or incident. I did a lot of cross country and track growing up. So I think I at least intrinsically understood the value of the foot and ankle and had an interest in kinematics, even if I didn't know what kinematics or biomechanics was or anything like that. I had read a couple articles, even when I was back in middle school, about how it's a good profession to go into. And so I was kind of a funny kid. I used to just joke when I was in 8th grade that I was going to grow up and be a foot doctor. And honestly, it just kind of stuck once I got to high school and once I got to undergrad and I actually researched the field and the profession and took a look at it. It turned out it was actually the perfect specialty for me.
No kidding. Well, let's talk about that. So when you first started investigating podiatric medicine, were you in college or were you in high school or
I seriously investigated it in college, I would say. I went to the University of Florida, and I went into it thinking I was going to go into medicine. So I started out with a pre-med major. Honestly, as you know, at a lot of these undergrad places, pod isn't exactly a forefront in the pre-health specialties. So I would spend a lot of time in that office. I actually built my little own podiatry area in the pre-med area that had back then. There was 7 pod schools. Right. Built about those and provided some information about it, but I knew pretty early that it was what I was going to go into.
No, that's really interesting because as I travel around the country and I meet with students or I meet with advisors at undergraduate institutions, podiatry is not on the list usually. It's not on the website even.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, as you know, the real value of it and the reason that I was really drawn to it, as opposed to just regular medical school, was that you start out specializing right away. I knew this is what I wanted to do. So from day one, I wanted to specialize in that. Not that other information isn't important and those other experiences aren't valuable, but I thought it really allowed me to hone in and get to what I wanted to do as soon as possible and be as trained as possible for doing that.
That's a really a great point. I think it's an underestimated reason why students go into podiatric medicine. It's nice to know what you're going to do right from the beginning. Yeah. No, that's interesting.
I mean, as I'm sure at your school, lower extremity anatomy is one of our most valuable courses, especially early in the curriculum. And that's just an experience you're not going to get if you go into foot and ankle orthopedics. that dedication and that real specialized knowledge.
Absolutely. Hey, before we talk about shadowing, I just wanted to share a story with you. We do gross anatomy with the DO students, my students, and then we have a very specific lower extremity dissection lab in the summer after their first year. And I'm like a broken record. I tell the students, you got to know your anatomy. If you know your anatomy, you'll understand biomechanics. And if you understand biomechanics, it gives you a better opportunity to be a great foot and ankle surgeon.
Yeah, I love it. Anatomy is one of the true passions of mine. One of the real joys, although I spend a lot of my time with the residents and with our senior students, one of the real joys of my year is I spend 1 week a year with our first year students teaching the arthrology portion of our lower extremity anatomy course. So I hope that I can bring some real clinical aspects into it and kind of give them a glimpse of the future. I wish I had time to spend more time in the dissection lab with those guys, but I really enjoy that week's worth of lectures on arthrology.
Oh, that's great. It's great that you can give back like that. So, Andy, when did you shadow a podiatrist? When did you knew you wanted to be a foot doctor, but when did you actually get in and see what foot docs were actually doing in the clinic?
I went to high school in and around Cocoa Beach, Florida, so kind of in Brevard County down there. And I shadowed a couple while I was in high school. And there was a couple great resources in and around the University of Florida with my undergrad. I didn't know anything any better, but one of the places where I spent a couple times shadowing was with Dr. Tim Wyatt, who I haven't talked to him in years, but of course I still remember his name and the experience. And he was partners with McGlanbury. And so at one point, he pulled me into his office and showed me the textbook. And of course, I was a dumb undergrad kid. I didn't know any difference. He was showing me that guy there, his dad wrote this textbook. And of course, it's become a staple of my life effectively.
It's fascinating how those things play out, isn't it? So when you started to look at different schools of podiatric medicine, what was your process? What was your game plan? How did you differentiate the different schools?
Good question. Like I said, I went to high school in Florida, but I wouldn't say I was married to Florida. So I certainly went down to Miami and Barrie and interviewed and had a good experience. I didn't go to the West Coast, but I was pretty broad in all the schools that I interviewed with. When I was growing up, I spent a fair amount of years in New Jersey. I went to elementary school and middle school there. And I don't know, honestly, when I interviewed at Philadelphia, I wasn't necessarily anticipating that being my number one choice, but I just really felt like I fit there. And I really felt like I fit kind of back in the tri-state area and Northeast, and just felt like it was going to be a fit. And I think in retrospect, it turned out to be a good decision for me.
Absolutely did. So you went to Temple and you were there for that first 3 years. And in the fourth year, of course, you were doing clerkships. What was that for you, Andy, in terms of looking at the different options and different types of training regionally and around the country? How did your fourth year play out as a clerk?
Yeah, it's such an exciting time. And working with students, it's so exciting to work with them as they work their way through the processes. They're all stressed about it, and I still remember being stressed about it myself. One of the points I always try to make to them is that the point of the clerkship process isn't to get a residency program. The point of the clerkship process is to learn. So you go to a place where you think that you're going to learn the most, and if it turns out it's a place you think you want to do your residency training, so much the better. Back in those days, we only got 3 clerkships before interviews, so it was pretty kind of high stakes where you picked it out. And of course, I can't tell you their names, but my first 2 clerkships, I really didn't enjoy, actually. Really? It wasn't that I learned a lot, but I didn't necessarily kind of feel that fit for it. And I actually got a little bit nervous that I wasn't going to like residency. And what if I didn't like any residency programs? And then I went to Inova, and honestly, just from day one, it just clicked with me. And I thought, wow, this is the place where I really want to work my butt off for the next 3 years and study and train and be the best surgeon that I could be.
That's incredible. Inova has such a rich history in training leaders in our profession. What a wonderful opportunity to go there. So when you were done at Inova, your path back to education, did you know you were going to end up in education? Was that in your blood?
I did. I didn't know that I was going to do it right away. Even back when I was in school, I did a lot of extra stuff, teaching, and honestly, it's just kind of in my blood. My dad's a teacher to some degree, and my mom's a teacher to some degree, and I just always had a fit for it. I always had a feel for it. I always had a passion for it. I thought that it would be easier for me to start out in academics medicine at the school, and if I didn't enjoy it, to break off from that and go into private practice, versus the alternative of starting out in private practice, and if I wasn't exactly happy, trying to break back into the school. And again, in retrospect, it turned out I think that was probably a good idea. I can't imagine my life in private practice. Most of my time is spent in clinics, seeing patients and doing surgeries and things like that. But it's certainly a lot different than private practice with the interactions and opportunities that I have with the students and the residents.
You're in a very, very unique position because not only are you at the Temple School of Podiatric Medicine watching students go through their first, second, third, and fourth years as a student, but you're a residency director, so the continuum is there into residency. So you're seeing them from admissions until they graduate from residency programs. And
in some cases, I've graduated residents who I interviewed to get into USPM, which is really something. Yeah.
That's a great feeling, isn't it?
It is. It's great. I don't really get to know the students until the end of their second year when they take my specific course, but I try and interact with them as much as possible during their first year and the beginning of their second year. Certainly, I get a lot of interaction with them when they start down in clinic and things like that, but it is really great to watch them grow and watch them develop.
I think I know the answer to this, but if you could only pick one course that you could teach in the curriculum, what would it be for the students?
Ooh, see, that's an interesting question with some changes going on. But my course that I teach is the surgical skills course. It's varied a little bit. It's either at the end of the second year or the beginning of the third year, depending on how our curriculum works out. So it's primarily a workshop-based course, but we do operating room protocol, suturing, hand ties, power equipment, nail procedures, essentially just an opportunity to really start the hands-on aspects. It's a ton of hours. And when I do the hand ties, man, at the end of that week, it's like, that's a week that my family knows to just kind of keep their distance during that week when I'm trying to teach hand ties to 80 to 100 students every year. But that's my course, and it'd be really tough for me to give that up.
Yeah, that's when.
With that said, I think when I think about my career long term, I think that not now, not 5 years from now, maybe not even 10 years from now, I could see myself teaching the lower extremity anatomy course as well.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. Well, one of my mentors when I was coming up as a student was Dr. DePremio, who was our lower extremity anatomy teacher and had 50 years of service within the school. And we got to become very close friends when I was a student. We kept in touch throughout residency. And he was beyond thrilled when I came back to teach at the school and join the faculty. He passed away a few years ago. God bless him, but he never understood kind of what my trajectory was. And he never understood why I wanted to be a residency director and do surgery. He just thought, why wouldn't you just do lower anatomy? He thought that should be my main focus and didn't necessarily see the big picture, I guess you'd say.
That makes sense. And you need people like that in your career to guide you and push you in certain areas. So tell me about being a residency director. What's your residency program like? How'd you structure it? I just think it's fascinating because, to be honest with you, Andy, I read your CV and I thought, oh my God, when does Andy sleep? That's why you need that Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Yeah, right. Being a residency director was great. It was one of my career goals, I guess you'd say. I don't know that I had a lot of necessarily tangible goals that I wanted to achieve, but residency education was such an important part of my career, and I just had so much respect for the attendings that spent so much of their time and their patience and their practice giving back to resident education. And it's so formative, and you could certainly make the argument that your years in residency education are more important than your years in school in developing what type of physician you're going to be and kind of what you're going to do with your career. So it's something that I really wanted to be involved with. I've done it for a long time already. I think I was 34 or 35 when I took over as program director.
Wow.
So I'm coming up on about 10 years. There's been most of the time it's great. You really do get to shape. You really do get to mold. You really do get to have independent action and work with students and turn them into residents, turn them from first year residents into senior level residents and watch them grow. And honestly, for me, the most important and most exciting part is creating independence. So, I mean, we certainly don't have a cookie cutter program at Temple Hospital. We find out what you're interested in, we find out what your goals are, and that's what we try and turn you into. I know that not everybody's the same, everybody's different, and it's really the job of the director to try and figure out and get people to the best that they could possibly be. And again, the most rewarding part to me has been not watching people graduate residency, but really seeing what they've done after they've left residency. It's independence is what it is. They're not dependent on me or any other faculty member. They've taken what we've given them and they've done their own thing with it, and they're putting their own imprint on the world. And that's what I find to be most rewarding is those 5 years after graduating residency and seeing what people accomplish.
Yeah, that's well said. I've often said that the unsung heroes in our profession are the residency directors and the faculty at residency programs that bring their cases to train the next generation of podiatrists. Because we do all the formative work at the school, but the real work, like you said, happens in the residency process.
Yeah.
So well.
10 years is a long time. I'll admit that there are times that I feel like I'm in a little bit of a cycle because, of course, first-year residents are always first-year residents and second-year residents are always second-year residents. And no matter what I do to the curriculum or the rotations, everybody kind of has to walk on that path and struggle over the same steps and face the same challenges. So it gets a little bit old sometimes, but it's certainly well worth it.
It really is. Just a side note, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Dan Hatch from Greeley, Colorado, and I started the North Colorado program. And we completely underestimated how much work it was going to be. And by the time we had 2 residents and I became the clerkship director, and then the first, second, third year, wow, it's a lot of work, but it's so gratifying. I agree with you.
I was relatively not naive, but I kind of thought like once I'd done it for a few years, you set up the curriculum, you set up the academic calendar, and it's just kind of like pushing the boulder off the cliff. That everybody's going to kind of get the same rotations, get the same experiences, go through the same academics, and all you really got to do is set up that pathway for them. But that's not the case. You've got to be with them all the way down as they go.
I like your concept of individually meeting the needs of the residents when they need it and what they really want to be. And I think that's how you get the most out of people. You got to let them be a participant. I like that structure.
Yeah. Got to be active, not passive learners.
No, absolutely. I wanted to talk about your passion for study, research, and writing papers. And it's phenomenal. I mean, you're young, you're, what do you say, 44 or so? And it's absolutely unbelievable. Andy, where do you get the passion to write papers? And, you're not only helping other doctors, you're helping them treat their patients better. So where did that come from?
I don't have a great answer for that either. It's not something that I thought that I was going to do. I always like to tell the story that my very first research project was when I was a first-year resident. I had never done any research up to that point. I didn't know what I was doing. One of my attendings asked if I wanted to participate in a project, and then, God bless them, but they didn't give me any mentorship whatsoever. They just said, this is what I want you to do, get it done. Okay. So I did it from start to finish. I had no idea how to even print a poster. It was going to be a poster at the ACFAS conference. I stayed up all night at a FedEx Kinko's to get the poster printed, and I rushed to the hospital the next morning to hand the tube to my attending before they got on a plane to go to the conference. And I'm not even sure if they hung the poster up. And I look back on that, and it was not science. It was not a good poster at all, but of course it was the first step. And I made a ton of mistakes, and I learned from it. And I really had a quest for asking unique questions and trying to derive unique information and to really push knowledge boundaries further. So that's what I really appreciate about the process and what I've learned about the process. I've always kind of been a bit of a writer. I've never had problems writing. And I've always been relatively creative where I could come up with unique questions and interesting questions and stuff like that. But honestly, I really do get a lot of, I do my own statistics. I taught myself how to do statistics.
Really?
And I get a lot of juice out of having all that data and trying to build something out of it. Wow. I think that's just such a rewarding experience. I always tell the residents that their job is to give me the bricks. They get me the data, and then I try and build a house out of the bricks of data that they give me. And that process, I think, is really exciting.
I like that analogy because a lot of people can bring the bricks. Not everybody can put them together. That's great.
Yeah, that's it. I always say that I'm a finisher. Like I might not always have the greatest idea for something, but a lot of people have ideas when it comes to research and science, but not a lot of people take it to completion. But if you get something sparked in my head with an idea, I'm going to get something out of it. We're gonna take it to the finish line in one way or another.
Well, that explains why you've been so prolific in publications. Then that's great. Hey, I've got a funny story for you.
You go up and down. Sometimes I'm really prolific. Sometimes I really feel like I'm in a slump. I've been in a little bit of a slump recently, but hopefully some new questions pop out here soon.
Oh, that's funny. Just to give you an idea of the totem pole, being at the bottom of the totem pole, when I was a resident, I did my first research study, and my job was to get urine specimens from everybody that was admitted to the hospital because we were trying to differentiate hydroxypyridinium or something in urine between osteomyelitis and Charcot. But at the bottom of the totem pole, my job was getting urine specimens.
Hopefully not in person. You weren't holding the cup?
No, but I was still in charge of everything, kind of making sure it really happened. So it's all good. It's all good. So let's shift gears a little bit, Andy. Let's talk about service to the profession. You and I sit together on the board at the American Association of Colleges of Podiatric Medicine. Huge responsibility, right? It's all the schools, it's all the residency programs. You represent the council and teaching hospitals. What are your thoughts? Giving back to the profession and being in roles like that. What do you get out of that?
Well, I just honestly, I think it's a responsibility. It's not for everyone, and not everyone has the not skill, but has the desire to do it and has the aptitude to do it. But if you do have the aptitude to do it and you are in a position that you're able to volunteer, I think it's something extremely important that we should all do. That's another thing that I really love about the job of being in academic medicine and at a school. Again, although I have a very busy clinical load and a very busy surgical load, and I take call at a level 1 trauma center, and I've got residents and students and blah, 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 it's not a big deal for me to take off a weekend to go to this meeting or go to that meeting or volunteer with this organization or volunteer with that organization. And I really feel the responsibility to do that and participate in the process and see what I can do to advance it along. So I've been fairly broad, I guess, in my organizational involvement, and it's really one of the most rewarding aspects of what I've been able to do so far.
No, that's great. And thank you for all you do. You're also on the board at the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. And that's a huge responsibility too, with all the committee work and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm coming to the end of my 3rd-year term on the board of the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. I don't know that that wasn't one of necessarily the tangible goals that I set out for myself in terms of the career. And if I'm being totally honest with you, I kind of went into it with a little bit of hesitation. It's obviously a very respected board. It's something that really people strive after. And I think the college represents the best and brightest of our profession. So I was a little bit hesitant about the opportunity, but I've never been one to turn down opportunities. So when it came up, I took it. And I was pleasantly surprised right from day one. Everybody checks their egos at the door. Everybody has a really big picture. Interest in what's going on and really sees the long term and figures out exactly what we need to do. And it's been extremely rewarding, and I've really enjoyed every minute of participating on the board.
Oh, that's great. The college has really advanced our profession, and I think we're very fortunate to have PJ Andrus as the executive director. Yeah. He's the real deal. There's no doubt.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, Chris Mahaffey, of course, was the executive director for a long time, and I got to know Chris a little bit, although I wasn't able to work with him. PJ started a little bit before I started on the board, but most of his time with the college, I think we've gotten to know each other and work together. He's done great things, and we are very lucky to have him, and I really look forward to working with him in the future. He's great.
Absolutely.
Did you do? I heard you were doing BARP and PJ for chat. Did you do that one yet?
Yeah, they were on yesterday. We had a great old time.
Yesterday?
Yeah, if your ears were burning, we were talking about you. It's all good. So you know what? You and I talked on the phone yesterday because I was fascinated by your CV. I was going through it all, and at the end, on the last page, I talked about your interest in art, and I see the wall behind you has some of your art on the wall. And I jumped on your website and it's unbelievable. I mean, I can see the creative genius come through. So can you share with our listeners some of your passions for art and even literature? And I mean, really, it's an eclectic interest you have.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I can completely explain it. I am certainly not a creative genius, but it's the imagination.
I'll throw that out there, though.
But I do have I'm a relatively creative person, I guess you'd say. I'm not an artist. Like, I can't really draw, I can't paint or anything like that. For one reason or another, I woke up one morning and I thought of a couple ideas for what would be like, kind of make an interesting painting or picture with respect to podiatric medicine. And I kind of built from there, and I spent, 6 to 8 months. I guess you'd call it more graphic art, because I did most of it on computers. Of course, I spend most of my time doing PowerPoint slides.
Sure.
So you kind of get the skill with respect to that. And so, yeah, I've got some podiatric themed art that I think is kind of fun.
I think it's incredible.
Not like hang in any museum or anything like that, but I think it's fun, and I think it's good to look at.
Tell us about the different. You've got a frame that mimics the Eiffel Tower and different landmarks.
One of the themes, I guess, in the collection, if you want to call it that, is I just got a bunch of from the small external fixator set. And I just built a bunch of stuff. So yeah, the Eiffel Tower was actually the most challenging one to try and get it accurate. Built the Eiffel Tower, some other structural landmarks, and some things from pop culture with mini external fixators.
Yeah, tell us more about the equivalence of the Eiffel Tower, just for the audience, just to hear about the different things you've done.
Oh, it was just tough especially getting the pin to bars exactly correct and in the right spot, and getting them at the right angle to make sure that it lined up exactly. I think I probably took 100 pictures until I got it exactly the way that I wanted it, and then transposed it onto a background.
Well, with your permission, I would like to, in the show notes, I would love to put your website on there so people can go to your website. And you've written a book too. I mean, on anatomy.
Well, the book is written by an anonymous physician from Philadelphia. But
I thought that was you. I'm sorry.
It's someone that I know personally well, yes.
Oh, I thought it was you in disguise. That's what I thought it was. All right.
So, yeah, it's about... it's about, of course, a big topic, as it should be now in all forms of medicine, about well-being and meditation and stress reduction and things like that. Just things that I've learned along the way, I guess you'd say.
So if I were to ask you, what is your relaxation technique or meditation technique of choice? What do you do to kick back and recharge the battery?
Well, I do meditate. I guess it's closest to Zen meditation. Depends on the week how often I do it, but I certainly do it at least on a weekly basis. That's usually in the evenings, I would say, but I exercise a lot. I try and exercise at least 4 or 5 times a week, and I go running. We're real lucky to live in Philadelphia. We live in the city of Philadelphia, but we live right on a valley park. So you go out my front door, and I hit a trail within 100 yards, and literally I'm connected to 50 miles worth of trails. So there's a great place to exercise and explore and really get out in nature, even though we're 10 miles away from Center City, Philadelphia.
Absolutely. You also had mentioned in your CV that you're interested in literature. Let's talk about that a little bit. You said French literature?
Yeah, I enjoy reading. This started in undergrad. I did most of my pre-med classes kind of early in undergrad. So my course load, the second half wasn't as rigorous, I guess. So I went to the library and thought that I would try and read. And I started out, I would just walk around the library stacks and figure out until I found a title that I recognized, and I would pull it and check it out and I would read it. Eventually, one of the books had a list of, 200 classic books that everyone should read.
Right.
And I just started working my way through that list. And that was a great experience, and I still keep it up. Probably my favorite is French literature from the 18th century. I think that's probably the best. I love Alexandre Dumas and Victor Hugo and Émile Zola. I really like those guys. The English novels I think are good too, but the English guys seem to take themselves a little too seriously for my taste. The Russian novelists forget about it. It's too flowery and verbose and all the adjectives and stuff like that. I could never get through those. But give me a good 18th century French adventure novel, and I love it.
Well, that's great. I agree with you. I've read some Victor Hugo, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Les Mis, of course.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the English writers. Dickens. I mean, I'm working my way through David Copperfield, and I can barely keep my eyes open at night.
It's not as enjoyable of a read. It's obviously excellent literature, but it's I don't know. Reading should be fun, and reading should come with a sense of adventure and humor.
I'm with you. I did the same thing. I found a top list of the 100 top books ever written. Of course, like The Great Gatsby's on the top, and some of those.
Yeah.
But I found that to be very enjoyable too. So I found when you mentioned that, and we talked the other day, I thought we'd bring it up in the podcast.
My favorite book is The Count of Monte Cristo by Dumas. Really? I read that at least once a year.
Oh, no kidding. I was thinking about my favorite book. I like all the Steinbeck books. The Grapes of Wrath. Yeah. Grapes of Wrath is great. East of Eden's great. Mice and Men is great. I mean, I like a whole lot of different authors. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, you got those French and English novels that are like this. Steinbeck is nicer here.
Oh, it's so much easier. Yeah,
you can do a couple chapters an evening. Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm with you. Well, that's great to talk about that. So shifting back to the task at hand at the schools, as you know, we've had a little bit of a dip in the applicant pool over the years, and you interface with a lot of students. I'm sure you also interview them. What do you tell a prospective student that's thinking about coming to the Temple University School of Podiatric Medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, that's probably one of the biggest challenges our profession is facing right now, and we're all working together under your leadership with the Feet on the Street initiative to get the word out, not only about the profession, but also to try and draw people in. And I think that's the way we're going about it, and the way you just said it is the right way. The first way is to create awareness. And once you can create awareness and get somebody into an office and experience what it is that we do, that is far and away our most likely way to draw someone in and engage interest and get somebody interested in it. So we do that at the school, although not that it's not effective, but when a prospective student shadows in our clinic, it's not exactly the same thing as a private practice. So although we enjoy having students at the school and we try and show them a good time while they're here, I think it's to some degree more important to set them up with one of our alumni or one of our volunteers to see what it's like in private practice and what a regular day is like. And it's something that every single person in our profession can do. Recruitment is very challenging in some ways, and in some ways it's not challenging at all, because all you have to do is open up the doors to your office and show someone what it is that you do and how you can help patients. And of course, what we do is so tangible, and in many ways it's so immediate that for many people, the light bulb clicks right away. It's a very powerful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that shadowing experience is just so important. And I've been so excited about working with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, and they're going out to their members and opening up their doors for mentorship and shadowing opportunities. So it's really fun to work together, and you get to be on both boards. That's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm happy to participate on both sides of the process. I think certainly our members, fellows of the college, are a great resource. Again, we have a great profession. I'm biased in that I think that the college fellows are really the best and brightest of our profession, really leading us forward. And they're always willing to open their doors and help out and pitch in and chip in with this recruitment initiative.
Yep, I'm with you. I think, career awareness is important, and getting in there and actually seeing with their own eyes what's going on with the best and brightest in our profession is really the answer too. So that's fabulous. Let's talk about coffee for a second. We were talking about Dunkin' Donuts. That's your choice, right? And I like 7-Eleven.
That's my choice.
All right. Do you make your own coffee at home?
Yeah, we do. We usually will grind Starbucks beans in the morning. I'm a little bit spoiled with that. We have a family friend who works at Starbucks, so honestly, we've had a constant stream of bags of coffee in our house for the last 10 years or so. I can probably count on 10, even though we drink coffee, we make a pot of coffee every morning. I've probably bought 10 bags of coffee over the last 10 years when we just kind of run low on our supplies. So that's usually what I drink. But if I go buy a cup of coffee, I prefer Dunkin' Donuts.
All right.
I think I usually drink coffee black, but when I get Dunkin' Donuts, I usually will get it with cream and sugar because I'm convinced they have something different in their sugar that just gives you a little bit of extra kick and drive. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something secret in there.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that out. Well, the reason I bring it up, Andy, is I'm going to send you one of these really cool Dean's Chat mugs.
Oh, thank you.
And if you take your coffee seriously, you can take it more seriously.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm going to give you the last word. Anything else about the profession going forward? What do you think the future of our profession is, Andy?
I think it's bright. I mean, there's no doubt we're going through a couple challenges right now, but I think that those will be short-lived with the amount of people who are taking these challenges seriously and the amount of people who have rolled up their sleeves to really dig into the process. As you know, I can tell you firsthand that our students are great. Our students are our future, and we have a bright future ahead of us. And we just need to keep the train rolling along and keep pushing out great students, keep pushing out great residents, and keep moving our profession forward. Well, scientifically, clinically, surgically, in all aspects.
Well said, and I agree wholeheartedly. Well, Andy, I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule in the middle of the week in the evening.
Yeah, no problem. The Phillies are playing too. We got a Phillies playoff game.
So are the Brewers. I'm a big Brewer fan. They're playing as we speak. I'm going to go find a sports bar and check it out, I think, here in Scottsdale. Anyways, thank you so much for jumping on.
Sure, thank you, Jeff. It's my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, please become a subscriber. And until next week, cheers, everyone.